Infants up to about 18 months have a single updating model of reality, of the world they can see now. From then to about 4 years, children can hold multiple models of reality in their minds, but they don't understand the process fully. They can recall the past, anticipate the future, have some notion of the wishes and intentions of others, understand and respond to pictures or stories, enjoy pretend play, and distinguish these other representations, memories, wishes, anticipations, fancies, pictures, stories, from the here and now. Aspects of these capacities also seem present in some other animals, especially in chimpanzees and perhaps other great apes, dolphins and other cetaceans. Then, during their 5th year, children begin to develop a distinctly human theory of mind, one capable of meta-representation, of understanding the process of representation, one that involves beliefs as well as desires, goals and intentions, a state that no other species appears to reach. The key test for this advanced, specifically human level of theory of mind is the false belief test, often called the Sally-Ann test. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a better diagram than this. The experimenters enact a scenario before each child, perhaps with puppet dolls called Sally and Anne, and a toy room as visual aids. Anne is in the room as Sally places a marble in a drawer. I think the image here uses different containers. Sally leaves and the door closes behind her. Anne then takes the marble out and puts it under the bed. Each child's subject is asked, where do you think Sally will look for the marble when she comes back into the room? 3-year-olds regularly fail this test. They think Sally will look under the bed, where they know the marble is. From some time between 4 and 5, children start to regularly pass the test. They understand first-order false belief, the capacity to realise that someone can have a different idea about something than what is actually the case. Children also have difficulty understanding their own knowledge. In another test, they're asked what they think is in a Smarties tube, and naturally they answer Smarties. If they're then shown pencils rather than the candy inside and asked what they now think is in the Smarties box, they answer naturally pencil. But when they're asked what did they think was in the box when they were first asked, 3-year-olds will say pencils, since they know that's what's now in the box. They now know that's what's in the box. 5-year-olds will say Smarties. 4-year-olds show mixed results. It's not that they're embarrassed to admit having been wrong. Although they're normally happy to point out other children's mistakes, 3-year-olds are just as sure other children first said pencils, when in fact they said Smarties. Children seem to come to understand their own understanding of things as they understand that of others. Before the age of 5, they can't understand or remember clearly either their own or others' mistaken beliefs. They don't quite appreciate the basis for knowledge. Now, there's one crucial consequence of the uniquely human level of theory of mind that we reach by the age of 5. If we understand that Sally can be mistaken about where the marble is, we also understand that in her position we would be wrong, and that there can be another perspective that sees the whole of the relevant situation and understands it as it really is. Unlike other species, we understand clearly that we might misunderstand, and that another perspective might show us things in quite a different and much clearer light. But where do we go from knowing we may not know enough? We crave the whole story, the whole situation. But how do we find it out? Our most sophisticated, evolved means of understanding the world is through theory of mind. For that reason, any information patterns that our minds recognise as sufficient triggers for this further kind of processing will be bumped up into the higher level systems theory of mind affords. Theory of mind begins in evolution with the rapid movement of agents. As predators or prey, foes or friends, mates or rivals, other animals can make a swift life or death or new life difference, a difference in terms of survival and reproduction. So like other animals, we over-detect agency. it's safer to mistake a bush for a bear than vice versa. In general, we should prefer false positives in our agency detection system to false negatives. With a false positive, if there's no creature there, we simply have a little more of a fright than we needed to have. With a false negative, we may be dead at the fangs of a snake or a bear or the hands of a human foe. We therefore have what's been called a hyperactive agency detection device. We can't help reading the world in terms of agents with beliefs and desires and intentions, if we possibly can. In a famous 1944 experiment by Hyder and Simmel, students were shown a short black and white film and asked to write down afterwards what they saw. The film involved three shapes, two dark triangles and one dark circle moving about the screen, which was featureless except for that stationary rectangle with only one side partially opened out. Without being cued by the experimenters, all the students except one reported in terms not of a series of spatial shifts, but of agents in conflict, usually two men competing for the attentions of a woman, who found one of them too aggressive and favoured the other. Only one student described the film in terms of the displacement of different shapes about a plane, and more recent studies produced similar results. One first answer to our predicament of knowing we may not know the whole truth of a situation is that our minds may simply prompt us to infer agency even when it's not there. But unlike other animals, we have not just a tendency to overread agency, but a full-blown theory of mind. Because this offers such a powerful basis for understanding events, even at the risk of sometimes overinterpreting them, evolution has shaped us to hone our theory of mind skills, to engage in pretend play compulsively as children and in stories as we age, around campfires for the San and the Kalahari, around books or films or television sets or the stage for us. Because the cognitive consequences of play or art are greater the more intensely we are motivated to engage, children in pretend play and storytellers in older fiction often choose surprising characters and incidents. We'd rather choose the extraordinary than the ordinary, as in this story by a 4-year-old. Once there was a dragon who went poo-poo on a house, and the house broke. Then when the house broke, the people died. And when the people died, their bones came out and broke and got together again and turned into a skeleton. And then the skeletons came along and scared the people out of the town. And then when the people got scared out of the town, then skeleton babies were born. And then everyone called it Skeleton Town. And when they called it Skeleton Town, the people came back. And then they got scared away again. And then when they all got scared away again, the skeletons died. No one came to the town, so there was no people ever in that town ever again. Stories exercise our theory of mind capacities. They offer a supernormal stimulus to our faculty for social cognition through exceptional characters and events and a pace much more rapid than usual. They help train us in thinking offline, thinking beyond the here and now, and therefore in projecting swift scenarios of possible actions and reactions. The more stories engage us, the more we want to attend to them, the better exercise in theory of mind they offer. We naturally notice and remember what surprises us, what challenges our deepest intuitions about things, kinds and minds. What merely confirms expectations we need not attend to closely, since we can predict from what we already know. But something that takes expectations by surprise alerts our minds to pay attention now. We therefore choose stories with surprising characters with surprising powers, like skeletons giving birth to skeleton babies. And studies show that we attend more closely and recall better stories that violate intuitive ontological boundaries, especially the crucial boundaries between animate and inanimate, or between the physical and the psychological, or the spiritual. Hence the appeal even now of magic, fantasy, of mutants, aliens, talking animals, paranormals, everything from Mickey Mouse and Harry Potter to Lord of the Rings, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the X-Files.